Luther Season 5 has had BBC viewers gripped ever since the first episode of the latest Idris Elba-led series dropped on New Year's Day. Now, with the current season drawing to a close in an explosive season finale, some fans are keen to know exactly what happened at the end. Here's what happened at the end of Luther Season 5. What happened at the end of Luther Season 5? Warning, the following article contains spoilers from Luther Season 5 Episode 4. Luther's Season 5 finale picked up where penultimate episode, Episode 3, left off, in the aftermath of the death of Benny Silver, played by Michael Smiley, the discovery of murderous couple Vivian and Jeremy Lakes, Hermione Norris and Enzo Silenti, lair under their home, and the hot-blooded feud between Luther, Idris Elba, Alice, Ruth Wilson, and George Cornelius, Patrick Malahide. The season finale opened with Luther in panicked conversation with the hitman who was employed by George to him, the hitman who had both Alice and Mark, Paul McGann, hostage. Before the credits even began, viewers also witnessed Greg Lake claim yet another victim, this time murdering a stranger and leaving him hanging from a bridge in London, setting the sinister tone for the remainder of the Season 5 finale. Post-credits, and it's discovered the man Lake had a mask grafted from his own face placed upon him. As Sergeant Halliday, Wunmi Mosaku, suggests questioning wife Vivian, despite her being treated in hospital, viewers watched as Greg's twisted perversions began to take over him, contacting escort services and plumbers in the hopes of finding victims to satisfy his desires. When Luther finally faces Go Urge, with a gun to his head, he forces George to call off his assassin, denting his pride by telling him, "You've lost your discipline." However, in a surprise turn of events, Luther handed George the gun and told him to pull the trigger. Before we discovered Luther's fate, George arrived at the site where he had hired the hitman to hold Alice and Mark. Luther Season 6 release date: George told the hitman Luther was dead, only for the assassin to realize something wasn't right and soon found himself with both Luther and George's gun pointed at him. Despite Luther wounding the hitman and telling he would spend his days in jail, George took matters into his own hands, delivering a fatal shot. After Luther left with Mark and Alice, Alice was desperate for reassurances her and Luther were safe. However, with Luther heading back to work, Alice rang George, with her true intentions left up in the air. With the chaotic drama from the hostage site behind, the action turned to Vivian in the interrogation room. Sergeant Halliday and DSU Martin Senk, Dermot Crowley, began to question Vivian about her husband's murders, unsympathetically, only for her to say, "I have no idea about Jeremy's activities." Vivian then went on to tell the pair she was merely defending herself in the situation with the young lady in the basement of her home. As Luther arrived to take the place of Senk in the interrogation room, the police boss discovered the news of D.S. Benny Silver's death. His behavior seemed somewhat unusual, telling the officer who discovered the body to remain stum about his colleague's death. Meanwhile, Luther entered the interrogation room to question Vivian about her and Jeremy's relationship, confronting her with the sick and twisted sketches Jeremy had drawn of his fantasies. The action then cut to Alice and Mark in his home, with Alice deciding to leave and issuing a stark warning to Mark, "Never let John Luther back through your door again." Back in the interrogation room, and S began to show in Vivian, as she grew frustrated by Luther and Halliday's questioning about her husband and his murderous activities. As the pair pried on Vivian's privacy and Jeremy's outlandish behavior, Luther dropped the bombshell she would be going to prison, having been implicated as an accomplice in his murders by Jeremy's sketches. This led to Vivian confessing to setting people up for her husband too, and provided the biggest breakthrough in the case. Will there be a Luther movie? However, Jeremy was still at large and viewers witnessed as he broke into a home on Bannon Street, the location where school teacher from episode 1 lived, a plot Luther worked out and set out to spoil. After leaving the teacher unconscious, Jeremy welcomed the plumber and escort he had contacted earlier into the home. Before the drama could unfold there, the series finale cut to George inside his home, where he found himself under gunfire from Alice. Alice's mission to George came to an abrupt end, however, when Senk and armed police arrived in the hopes of discovering exactly what happened to DS Benny Silver. In a conversation with Senk, George revealed a photo of Luther towering over the hitman which he had taken during their visit to the hostage site. Senk then issued the order to Halliday to bring Luther to the station as they made their way to Bannon Street. After he refused, Luther and Halliday entered the premises owned by the school teacher where they suspected Jeremy would be. Inside, Luther and Halliday discovered a number of victims, dead, all with a mask of Jeremy's face on. Something didn't sit right with Luther, who realized Jeremy was posing as a victim in order to Halliday, arriving just in time to save her, leaving Jeremy beaten and blood in the doorway. As Luther and Halliday left the house, Halliday told Luther she had called in Senk and he only had a matter of minutes. But as Luther pleaded with his colleague to let him go, Alice arrived and shot Halliday, and also leaving a bullet in Luther's arm in the process. The pair then found themselves in a shootout, with Alice landing several more bullets into the show's main character. With Alice running out of bullets, a frail and woozy Luther pleaded with Alice to give herself up, but when she revealed she had one more, Luther used the last mite of his energy to push her off the platform the pair were on. With Alice heading toward the floor below and inevitable death, Luther catches her hand but she uses a blade to free herself and fall to the ground. As Luther watched a lifeless Alice, Senk and the crew arrived, cuffing Luther and placing Luther under arrest. Watch Luther online, how to stream and download Luther.